Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Okay, so they can hear it. Okay, so then we can just. Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me. I am sending this stream to myself. Okay. So I believe you guys can hear me now. So So welcome to the stream. Today we're gonna be doing a couple of fun things. We're gonna be drawing a bunch of poses while working on form and gesture. So I'm probably gonna do some world tag poses. Give me a second. Sorry, I'm like a little bit under the weather. But yeah, quick poses. So I like to warm up with like quick poses, right? Which is just like this website where you can find a lot of really good free action oriented poses. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm like super under the weather. Anyway, so like I was saying, it's like you can find a lot of really nice action poses here. We're gonna go for about 90 seconds for each pose. The whole goal here is to just try to get as much energy in the pose as possible. So I'll have the pose showing on the left and then me drawing on the right, and I think that should be enough. You guys, I don't really need this part right here. And the poses are not very big, so let's start. Okay, wait, this is not the right one. This is the chiaroscuro one, so that's better for like if you're trying to draw specifically light and form. But anyway, let's get started. And don't forget my Genshin Impact music.
Learning German with Duolingo, Rosetta Stone, Babbel, and other popular apps is so much fun until words start moving around, other words start slightly changing again and again and again, and the explanations for what is happening, if there are explanations at all, leave you feeling even more confused. If you want to get unstuck, I have something for you. Click or tap to sign up for my free mini course, Unlocking German Grammar.
So let's change something. So these are all really from our favorite pieces. So here, let's I'm gonna start one right now. I'm gonna try to just get it done. I'm hoping this is the one. These don't look very good. So we'll use now. Now gonna study some other artists, and then we're gonna actually try to figure out what we did wrong, whether it works, whether it doesn't work. I'll show you some of my favorite artists, some of my favorite hands, some of my favorite body parts. So, like, what I like about this one, right, are the hands. So I really, really love the hands in this. In fact, they are my favorite part of a lot of this artist's drawings. I really like the way they do hands. So if you take a look here, you can zoom in a little bit. So, see the hand. If you look at the hand, right, there you can kind of see an implicit boxy shape here, right? Like the way I kind of learned to draw was through boxy understanding form, but you can see the boxy shape here. But what the artist did was that it looked at they probably had this boxy shape, but they put two fingers out, so they have a really nice shape silhouette here, which is important when you're drawing, especially in 2D, right? And in 3D, you also have to care about this, but the thing is that 3D, the nice thing is that shape is the only thing you have to care about. You don't have to care so much about form. Whereas in 2D, you have to care a lot more about form, and then you can think about shape. Because shape kind of, you get that kind of for free being on 2D. But yeah, so as you can see, you can kind of see the implicit form there. And then, you know, the way hands work, right, is that they're kind of like this little boxy form, right? I mean, I can probably just draw a regular hand out. So hands are kind of this. Now that might be a little exaggerated, but more or less this form here. And then you've got your fingers. So you've got kind of like a straight, it might be a little too, right? And then usually I like to kind of, because I see this with a lot of famous artists, they kind of group the middle and ring finger together, and then they have, so they kind of group them together, and then they have the pinky finger, right? And then from there you have this little blob of space, right, that constitutes the thumb. And then there you go. You kind of have a functional hand that way, right? So yeah, let me go ahead and just erase some of this stuff here. Yeah, that's how you have a functional hand, right? So this is a pretty decent hand that you can use. This is how I kind of think of hands, right? So you have this kind of the first part here, which is, I don't know why my color settings are appearing on my other screen, but color settings should be here. Let's try something that contrasts it quite heavily. But yeah, so when you're actually drawing hands, right, you have this kind of, this is the first mass you have. You have this kind of, I don't want to call it like, it's like the bulk of your hand, right? It's the actual hand part where the muscles that control the rest of your fingers live, right? The squishy part. And then you kind of have this squishy part here, and I'll probably use a different color to indicate that. But yeah, you have this squishy part which leads to the thumb, and this always jettisons out just a little bit. So like think of the main stuff, the main thing that you have, right? Think of it as like, yeah. So this is actually really cool, but what was I saying? So yeah, essentially, you have this kind of, I don't know what to call it. It's like padding. It's like the central part of your hand. So the center of your hand, it kind of forms this shape. So I mean, if you're excluding the thumb, we're excluding the thumb here, but it kind of forms this shape, right? Now with the thumb, right, this shape becomes more like that, right? The thumb is kind of like, you can think of it like as a triangle that goes on the side. So yeah, if you think of it one way, you can think of it like that. So yeah, it's one big triangle. So the thumb part is a triangle. So thumb equals triangle. So it's a triangle that you just kind of put at the top. I'm sorry, put at the side, and then you kind of. The nice thing about it is that then you have your fingers are essentially just rectangles. So this is your medium, this is your large, and this is your small. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the principle of small, medium, large, right? But like when you're designing things, you want to kind of keep it in these kind of proportions where you have a maybe your medium sized object. So say you have this your medium sized object, and you have a large size object, and then you have a small size object, right? And this kind of arrangement is generally pleasing to the eye. Three things in like this is kind of abstract, but if you think of it more maybe as like a face or whatever, right? You kind of have a small, so you kind of have a big, medium, small relationship, right? You find this everywhere. It's kind of connected to the golden ratio. I don't know so much about it, but I know that it's kind of connected to these golden ratio things or whatever. Anyway, that's not entirely important. These are just notes that you need to keep in mind when drawing hands. And this allows you to draw hands from like any type of perspective, right? Because like I kind of took a while to study hands, and I got not amazing at it, but like you can really draw hands. So I'm thinking of a perspective here, right? You can draw hands pretty. So like for example, this is the main thing. I'm gonna let's do this. Yeah, you can kind of draw hands from any perspective with this kind of this way of thinking, because you kind of right. So even if the hand comes out a little bit, it's like, oh, okay, well, I know that I can put the middle finger and the ring finger together, and then I can have the pinky finger do what it does. And one really nice way of making hands look better is putting nails in them, because nails give a really good indication of 3D form, right? They give a really good indication of 3D form. Yes. So as you can see, this is a hand in which it's kind of facing this way. And it's not a perfect hand, not the best hand I could have drawn, but it kind of you kind of get the idea, right? Anyway, so if you can see on the artist's second hand, you kind of have the same dynamic, right? The only thing is that the triangle is in a different place. So you kind of think of it like that, like a cube, right? And then you think about adding this triangle part. So this is the triangle thumb part, and this is the actual cube part. And then all the fingers kind of come out from here. I mean, I generally, like I said, put these on the same planes as each other, but the pinky finger is different, your index finger is also different, etc., etc. So those are some ways of simplifying the hand. Let's get to redrawing what she did here. So my goal is to try to redraw this hand. So usually I draw something inserted for the wrist, and then that gives me the idea, like, okay, well now I know where the 3D space is going. And then I can come up here, and and she's interesting because her actual hand doesn't use that relationship I was talking about earlier, the small, medium, large. But we can still make it work because this is a different hand pose, right? So this is like a kind of a fun hand pose. Now, I would say tapered cylinders are always going to be the best for, yeah. I like drawing in these kind of like, yeah, it's a little too much. I would say I kind of like my style of drawing, but I also feel like it's not very consistent. But then again, I'm just kind of trying to figure this out myself. So it's not something I am gonna kind of complain too much about. Yeah. And then yeah, she's kind of drinking something. So yeah. Okay. Let's check. So yeah, there's a lot of problems here. So it seems like I'm not very good at observation here. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Okay, great. Anyway. So, yeah. I'm trying to draw this out. There's a lot of problems here. So, one is that this needs to be wider. So, this needs to be wider. Yeah, this needs to be wider. What else? So, I need to move the thumb back. And then the fingers aren't as long. I usually like making long fingers, but I notice the fingers aren't as long and they're not as separated out. That's my alarm. And the hand rotates even more in perspective than I had thought originally. Anyway, that's interesting. Okay, next one. Okay, we are going to be talking. We're going to be doing a little bit of some studies and trying ways to understand how to think about different parts of the body. So this is a really good one. In fact, this is one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite action pose. He does some of my favorite action poses, right? But if you look here, you look very closely. What he does. So say we want to focus on arms because arms is something that I've always struggled with, right? What I've noticed is that he kind of attaches the arm, right, to the top of the rib cage. So the actual rib cage is like somewhere here, right? I want to say maybe here, right? How the ribcage is here, right? And then there's kind of like a bulbous part that comes out of the ribcage, like a circle that comes out of the ribcage. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it in a lot of other places. Like if you look at the ribcage, right? Let's look at it from a 3/4 point of view. So if you look at the ribcage, say this is your sternum, or let's make this the sternum, right? This is the sternum. This is that part here. If you're familiar, if you know, you know. I won't go over too much into that kind of construction drawing today, but right. So you see this, right? The shoulder, the deltoid, right, which is that muscle, is kind of like a big ball that kind of lies here. It's kind of like shaped like this, but not really. It's like a little flatter at the top. Like, if we can take a look at some pictures of deltoids. I'll see if I can bring it up on my other screen. I have like way too many tabs for everything. Just way too many. But yeah. Give me 1 second. And one thing I'll say is that doing this digitally might feel like it confers more benefit, but I don't think it does unless you're actively checking against what you've done, you know, what you've created. So, for example, deltoids. So, like, if you look at this picture here, right? Look at this picture here. You see how his deltoids. Actually, you know what? Let me just download it. That might be a little more helpful. Also, I want to play some music in the background because it feels very quiet. Maybe a little too quiet. Anyway. Yeah. So like I was saying, essentially what you do is you download this image, or I'm gonna download this image to show you how this ones look. But you see how they're kind of like, you see how they kind of sit on the chest? Like the chest kind of comes up into the deltoid, so the chest kind of comes up in here. So if you want your characters to have good chests, right, they should kind of come down into that deltoid. Okay, that's so bad. Those are really bad. Okay, more like they should be like this, right? So it should be kind of like a, because the chest actually comes up in front, but it kind of wraps around into that deltoid space, right? This is kind of the feeling that you're trying to get. And then from there, then you start having, like about right here, you start having your arm. And then that's a whole other can of worms, right? I can redraw that to make it a lot more clear. So the thing is that let's start with, so we can start with that. Right? So come here. There we go. Right. Then you have your shoulder. So the shoulder, like I said, is kind of actually flat. Like it's not perfectly so it's actually kind of boxy, but flat for the most part, and then it comes down. Right. Anyway, so going back to what he originally did. Watch. So we're gonna come here. So you can focus a lot on that arm, that shape, because this kind of triangle shape is everywhere. And then especially, yeah, this sort of triangle shape is essentially like a, it looks kind of like that, but more tapered on either side. It's like that, right? And then you see I'm trying to break it down to the least amount of sides I possibly can use, right? And really this is kind of a straight, right? And then from this starts higher up, like because this muscle, the triceps, insert higher up on your back rear delt. Your biceps insert pretty high, pretty forward in comparison. So this part is actually just like, and then you have your forearms, right? Usually for me, I try to, I still haven't really figured out forearms, because forearms always look bad to me, as mine do. But yeah, that's basically the main thing, right? You have to have this kind of like little, this shape, right? In your arsenal, right? If you're trying to make shoulders, right? I'm just trying to draw those things. Anyway, that's what I want to get at, right? Now, how he makes hands is really, really gestural and amazing. I really like the way he makes hands. Yeah, this is, he kind of makes hands a lot like me. This is how I generally make a gestural hand. Anyway, so let's go on. That's how he makes hands. I think it's really cool. Now also look, observe how the head is connected to the torso. So like one way of thinking is that the head and the torso are like literally on the same plane. In fact, it looks like the head is on the torso. personally, you probably know, okay, well, your head is not supposed to, it's not usually like that. And it kind of helps the pose calm down, right? Right, so this back part really helps sell the pose. Helps sell that line of action, right? So, this line of action, right? Into this kind of like, it's almost facing backward, but it's not, because it's not really possible for humans to do that. But you see how he gets that pose to just look and feel just contorted? And it's hard to do that while keeping the limbs looking even remotely okay. Right. Now, the thing is that when you're drawing a pose like this, right, you have to constantly be thinking about, and this is why I try to draw stick figure poses and make sure that I get those correct before I go straight into gesture, because I want to think of one thing at a time, right? So like for me, it's like, okay, I'm starting with this head, but I also need to make sure that the legs, right, make sense. Right? Like, they need to, like, I want to form this kind of triangle pose, right? So, I want this, so I'm going to want, like, you see how this triangle shape, like, start very, very big. So, I want to teach, one way that I've been learning, right, is by starting very, very big, especially with poses like this that are meant to be gestural, energetic poses. Start very, very big, right? Start exactly the big shape that you want. So I want a big triangle shape, right? And then figure out where the head needs to be in relation to your torso. In fact, the entire thing is kind of a big triangle, right? That's really what the pose is. And I can probably place the head a little lower, and then place kind of like, you know, where all the body parts might go based on that, right? And I know that I'll have to do something like this if I want to be able to kind of sell that. Yeah, if I want to be able to sell that feeling of like crushness, is, yeah, I want to sell that feeling of like, okay, this is something. Like, this person is getting ready to just burst out of their seams, right? And it's not like we need more art teachers like that. In fact, I think a lot of people. But yeah, this is... Anyway, so there we go. You see how you got that kind of triangle nature to it? Now, I think I've kind of fully studied this pose, so we're gonna hop into another pose. I'm not gonna lie, this gives me an excuse to talk to myself. Yeah, it helps me keep focused a little bit. Oh yeah. Now, generally, I like to. Now, I don't want to.
When you're struggling to focus.
I don't want to focus too hard
on when you're in the zone. Drawing and staying there. That feels more like luck than something you can control. So that's why we made Brain FM. It's like a do not disturb setting for your mind. And it gets you focused in just 5 minutes. Using science and sound, Brain FM guides your brainwaves into an optimal state for productivity called neural phase locking, which lets different parts of your brain work together more easily.
Videos about
compared
my
to
drawings
music,
and
Brain FM actually increases and sustains your focus over time, letting you stay in the zone for as long as you want. You can also use Brain FM for relaxation, meditation, and even sleep. But don't take our word for it. Join millions of others and try it yourself for free, and see what you get done with Brain FM.
Anyway, I think I'm gonna hop off live and then start recording a bit of a stream. Not recording the stream, but like doing a study time lapse instead. I think that would be more helpful. So, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys later. Goodbye.